Hello and welcome to episode 2 of our Explore series. Today we are exploring Satya, truthfulness, talking about being honest with others in our actions and with ourselves. This practice is going to be a nice, slow, restorative yin style practice, so get some comfy, warming clothes on as we're not going to be really developing much heat in the body through the movement. So socks and jumpers and cozy clothes. If you have a blanket, that's always really nice for a yin practice as well. We're going to begin in an extended child's pose. So come around to your hands and knees. Bring your big toes together, take your knees a little bit wider. Sit back towards your heels, just get your hips nice and comfy here. It can help sometimes to have a little shuffle side to side like this. Then walk your hands straight out, hands about shoulder width apart or even slightly wider, and let your forehead come down to rest. If the ground feels quite far away, you could bring your hands one on top of the other like this and rest your forehead down. Or you could even make your hands into fists and bring your forehead there. See what feels best for you today. And just start to connect with your breath. So what I mean by that is become aware of your breathing. Watch your breath as it comes into your body, as it moves out of your body. Allow your breath to settle into a steady rhythm. Notice where in your body you feel a stretch. You may be feeling some sensation around your hips, maybe around your ankles. You may be feeling something around your lower back, maybe your upper back, or into your shoulders. Starting to build some awareness of what's going on in your body with each posture. I'm going to move into a slight variation on this posture, so just lift your head slightly. Reach your arms back out if you don't have them there already, and walk your hands over to the left. So I want you to try not to lift your hips as you do this. Try and keep your hips reaching back towards your heels as you reach your arms over to the left. And then just let your head relax down. It might not come all the way to the ground this time, that's okay. So you should feel something along the right hand side of your body as we're stretching and opening up the muscles and the connective tissues around the right shoulder, along the upper back on the right side, down through the right side of the waist, and all the way down into the lower back and the right hip. The practice of yin yoga is all about softening into slightly longer and deeper stretches. So it gives our bodies a chance to really open up, allows a deeper release of tension as we work into slightly deeper connective tissues, not just the muscles. Let's take another breath or two here. And just lifting your head slightly, start to walk your hands back through the center and across to the right. So again, not lifting up from the hips, just still sitting right back, opening up along the left side of the body now as you rest your head down. Stay conscious of your breath. You might feel as if when you breathe a little bit deeper, The stretch feels as if it deepens too. See if you can notice that today. That when there's a short, shallow breath in and out, the stretch doesn't feel quite as intense. But when we take a deeper, more full breath, you might feel the intensity of the stretch changing a little bit. A couple of final breaths here. And then slowly lifting, walk your hands back through to the center, come up onto the hands and the knees, releasing that position. So bring the knees together, bring the knees all the way together now, bring your feet together as well. Tuck your toes under and start to walk your hands back towards your knees, coming into a toe and foot stretch. Now this can be quite intense. So we always want to stay with our soft edge with these yin yoga postures. So when we talk about edges, your hard edge in a stretch would be going to the absolute maximum point where you can stretch, going to the full depth, the full range of motion. And that's okay if you're only there for a very short amount of time and your muscles and tissues are really warm. But with yin yoga, we're keeping everything quite cool. We're not warming up the muscles. We're working into the connective tissues, so we want to stretch in a more gentle way. So we stay with our soft edge instead. So not going to the full limit, the full range of motion, just backing away from that slightly. So when it comes to this foot stretch, going into the deepest version would be sitting all the way back like this. That's putting a lot of pressure through the feet. Going into your soft edge will probably look more like this, leaning into your hands. You're going to feel a good stretch through your toes, through the soles of your feet, but hopefully it's something that you feel you can sustain and stay with a bit longer. So that's always what we're working into with yin yoga. We stay with these stretches for longer, but we're only going to our soft edge. And we find that the connective tissues, the fascia, things like tendons and ligaments, really respond well to longer, more sustained stretches, but not as deep a stretch. It helps to strengthen those tissues, it helps to release and lengthen them as well. And when I say release, I mean release pain from the body, release tension. Now I realise I've been talking for a while. You're doing really well. This is a tough pose to hold. Final couple of breaths now. Try and release your jaw, try and relax your forehead. And then slowly will come out. So walk the hands forwards, release your toes. Ooh, and give your feet a little bit of movement, rolling the ankles, wiggling the toes. Well done. Don't know if you can hear, but my ankles are clicking, so yours might be doing the same. Cool. Okay, now coming around to sit, and we're going to be opening the legs out wide, so you might find it easier to turn and sit this way round on your mat. Still sitting on the blanket if you're using one, that's always nice. So open out your legs like this, and then just bring your right foot in. So bending your right knee. If this knee feels a little bit vulnerable, bent like this, you could bring a cushion or you could roll up your blanket and just wedge it under that knee for a bit of extra support. This is a good opportunity to practice Satya, truthfulness. Be honest with yourself about when you need that support. It comes back to ahimsa as well, non-harming. Listen to your body and give yourself that compassion and kindness. Start to walk your hands forwards now, leaning into this stretch. Try not to flex through the foot here, keep this leg nice and relaxed. And then walk your hands over to the left, towards the left leg, and rest your left arm just on top of your leg like this. Let your left ear drop towards your left shoulder. And then slowly send your right hand up towards the ceiling. Coming into this side stretch. Big stretch for the lower back on the right side. Really good for the hips. Can be quite intense though. So again, we're going to practice Satya, truthfulness, when it comes to how deep we should be going into the pose. Ask yourself now, does it feel safe in this posture, or does it feel like you're maybe stretching a little too deeply? If you think it's maybe a little too deep, you're just going to lift up like this a little bit, come up a little bit higher, and then stop there. So I want you to really be honest with yourself here about where your soft edge is. I know for me, my hard edge would be going way beyond this and it would feel really intense on the lower back. My soft edge feels like it's maybe about here, and this is where I'm going to stay. So I want you to do the same for you. Try and really let your head go. And you can choose to keep this arm lifted, or now that we've kind of established the pose, you could let it come down and just rest your hand against your lower back. So the head drops over, try and loosen around your jaw here. You could close the eyes if you like, and we'll soften into this posture for a little while. Now you always have the option to come out of the pose, to make changes, to move anytime you need. If you feel safe as you are in the pose, try and settle into stillness just for a little bit longer. Couple of final breaths now. And then tuck your chin towards your chest. Nice and slowly start to lift all the way up. Lean back into your hands for a moment. You could keep your eyes closed if you like, and release the legs in whatever way feels good. Take a moment to pause and notice any sensations as you release the stretch. What do you feel now in your lower back, in your hip, wherever you felt that stretch most? How does it feel when the stretch is released? And open your eyes when you feel ready. You're going to stick with this right side of the lower back and right hip with the next stretch, and then we'll come back to that posture on the other side. So we're going into what you might know as pigeon pose, sometimes referred in yin yoga as sleeping swan. So we're coming round into this position. If you know where you're going already, we're bending the right knee, left leg is behind you. If you've no idea what I'm talking about with this pose, I'll talk you in with more detail. Come to your hands and knees, walk your hands up towards the front of your mat. Bring your right knee towards your right wrist, and then open it out just a tiny bit wider so your right knee is against the edge of your mat. Bring your right foot across your body so your right shin is kind of diagonal across the mat like this. Tuck your left toes at the back and start to edge your left knee backwards. So you're trying to sink your hips as low to the ground as you can. We don't want to drop over to one side like this. We're going to try and keep the hips level. Just pause there for a few breaths. You can keep the toes tucked or untucked. And then if you feel ready, you could come down to rest either on your forearms like this, or you could come all the way down and rest your head onto your hands. This is another posture that can be a little bit tough on the knees. So if your knees are not feeling this one and they want something a little gentler, what you're going to do instead is just roll onto your right hip and bring both of your knees into a right angle bend. So it's a less deep bend in this front knee. So you're going to come to sit in this position. So right knee bent like this, left knee bent behind you. And then you're just going to turn towards your right leg, walk your hands away from you and lean into it like this. So you should find that that's gentler on your knee. You're still able to stretch out the target area, which is the right hip, the right glute, and into the lower back on the right side. So Again, practicing Satya, truthfulness. Be honest about which version of the pose is going to suit your body best. Just staying for a little bit longer here if you can, as long as it feels safe. But know that you can come out of the pose at any time. Last couple of breaths now. And then slowly, we'll start to lift back up, coming up onto the palms, lifting out of the pose whatever way you want to, whatever way your body naturally wants to release. You could just roll onto your right hip and come back around to sit as we were before. Or you could come back through to tabletop position and maybe stretch out your right leg to release the pose that way. Take a moment to recover, whatever way works for you. And then we're going to go into those two postures on the other side. So coming to sit in this wide straddle position and then bending the left leg. Again, if you need a little support for this knee, grab a cushion or a rolled up blanket and just prop it under your left knee or left thigh. Now keeping the legs nice and relaxed. Walk your hands forwards, lean forwards, and then walk your hands over to your right leg. Bring your right arm to rest on top of your leg. Let your right ear drop towards your right shoulder, and slowly take your left arm up towards the ceiling. Pause there, take a breath, and then gauge where your soft edge is. So does this feel a little too intense as you are now? Do you maybe need to lift up slightly to find your soft edge? Or do you feel okay with where you are? Does it feel safe? Does it feel like somewhere that you could stay for a couple of minutes without causing harm? If you're not sure, it's always best to go to err on the side of caution, so lifting up slightly like this, so you're not in quite as deep of a stretch. Let your head go, and you can choose then to keep the arm lifted or to bring it down to rest, maybe bringing your hand against your lower back like this. Release your jaw, soften into the pose. If your mind feels distracted, use your breath as an anchoring point, as something to watch, to observe, to listen to. Feel your breath as it comes into your body. Feel your breath as it moves out. Notice the movement in your body as you breathe. Does the feeling of stretching change at all between the inhalation and the exhalation? Couple of final breaths now. And then tuck your chin towards your chest, slowly start to lift. Again, lean back into your hands. Take a moment to recover. You could leave the legs as they are, or you could stretch them out in front of you if you feel the urge to move them. Going into pigeon pose or sleeping swan next. So again, if you're quite familiar with this pose, you could bring your hands round to the left, shuffle round onto your left side and come into the pose this way. If that doesn't feel like it's going to happen, don't worry. Come to the hands and the knees. Walk your hands up to the top of the mat. Bring your left knee towards your left wrist and then take it just slightly wider so it's towards the edge of your mat. And then shuffle your left foot as far across as it wants to go so that your shin is kind of diagonally across the mat. Take your right foot, tuck the toes and edge your knee back as far as it can comfortably go. It might be really different on this side, so just listen to what your body's telling you. Where is that soft edge? Where's your safe limit? Then you can either keep the toes tucked or untuck the toes and gradually make your way down, either resting on your forearms or bringing your hands under your forehead. Check in with how it's feeling on this side. If it's causing any pain in either of your knees, then come back up. Sit onto your left hip and bring your knee round at the back. So we're bringing a less deep bend into both knees. So taking a 90-degree bend roughly on this front leg, 90-degree bend on the back leg. Look towards your left leg, bring your hands to the ground, and you can walk your hands away and just lean over your left leg. So again, we're targeting the same area with the stretch, but it's gentler on the knees. So you can choose where you're going to feel best there. As you soften into this posture, coming back to the idea of honesty, truthfulness, Satya. We've talked a little bit about how we can apply this to the physical part of our practice on the mat, looking at where our limits are and being honest with ourselves about when it's safe to go a little deeper and when it would be safer to come out of the posture. I'd like you to start thinking about Satya on a slightly deeper level now. This concept of truthfulness relates more deeply to who we actually are, whether we're being honest in our actions and words, whether we're being true to our deeper selves. Last few breaths in this posture. And then slowly we'll start to lift, coming back up onto the hands, easing out of the pose, either coming round to sit like this or coming back through to tabletop position on the hands and knees, and then stretching out the legs. Again, pause for a minute or move for a minute as you release the pose, as you recover. Then we're coming into our final meditation, reflection, relaxation, whatever you want to get out of this. So you could come to lay down, you could cover yourself in your blanket and get comfy there, or you could come to a seated position and take more of a seated meditation. Take a moment to get comfortable, to get settled. Soften your forehead and relax your jaw. Take a slow breath in and a slow breath out. As with every practice in this series, I'm going to invite you to consider a question. And we'll take some time to just be quiet, to reflect, to relax, to let go, to meditate, whatever you want to take out of this time. The question that I invite you to consider today around the concept of Satya, truthfulness, is this: how would you be more authentically yourself if you weren't afraid of other people's reactions? How would you be more authentically yourself if you weren't afraid of other people's reactions? Take a deeper breath now. And bring your palms together in Anjali Mudra to bring our practice to a close. Thank you for joining me again today. I hope this has given you something to think about. I hope your body is feeling good from the postures and the stretches, and I hope to see you for episode 3 very soon. Thank you for watching. Take care.